Hello, everybody, and my name is Wade Cass, and my partner is Jason Wagner, and we have a presentation about kids in the hall.
Thanks, Wade. So our learning objective today will be that students will understand and appreciate the complexities of a learning disability, specifically a math learning disability, and students will discuss differentiation considerations of a student with a learning disability. And then the activity will be our forum discussion response, and your assessment will be formative in the form of us responding to your forum discussion. So our agenda, we will overview Tom's exceptionality, which is our case study, our hypothesis, the considerations for Tom, a lesson plan exploration that we gained from a teacher we know, changes to the lesson plan and rationale, and then Tom's successes, and finally our reflection question.
Awesome. So let me tell you about Tom and his exceptionality. Tom is an exceedingly bright student when it comes to certain areas. He has a very good entrepreneurial mindset. He loves photography. He loves being busy. However, he has a learning disability in mathematics. And we feel like when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the third tier is not being met for him. He does not have a lot of friends. He does not have a lot of connection really at all within school. So he feels disconnected to the point where he doesn't want to be there at all. So for him to get more engaged within class, he needs to have that base and support around him, as we all do. As well, his reading right now is around 3 to 4 reading levels below what it should be. And we will go through why we think all of this. But a big point of it is, like I said, he's not a lazy student by any means. He does so much stuff, we think he might be getting bogged down as well.
Yeah, and just to add to that, based on our case study information, there is nothing on the family, so there's nothing we can assume that his disability is stemming from any family issues. And like Wade said, belonging is a huge aim, as well as engagement in his studies. So our hypothesis here is that Tom's been passed along in the system, going from one teacher to the next. And part of his disability with mathematics, the problem with it is that, as it said in our case study, the older the student, the more likely reading disability will be accompanied with learning in mathematics. So that reading level is a huge concern for sure. Tom has a very busy lifestyle. He's involved in a photography club as well as a church choir. So he's got a very busy lifestyle, which means time management could be an issue. And he feels unsupported in his academic pursuits. So all behavior, as we've mentioned in class, is communication. And Tom right now feels frustrated based on his actions at school.
And just to add on to that as well, we feel like his very busy lifestyle might be putting a little bit of extraneous load on him, which could be affecting a lot of his school stuff, like as well as math and reading. He just has so much on his plate right now that could be an issue for him.
Thanks, Wade.
So for the strengths and areas of growth, his strengths are, like we mentioned, he loves photography, design, drawing and painting, his entrepreneurial initiative, and he's exceedingly creative. This comes out in many different ways when we were reading about him. But as we've stated, his writing and reading is a bit of a struggle right now. His math, he just can't quite grasp the concepts. He doesn't have many friends, so then he becomes shy and easily discouraged. And because of that, he has a lack of self-control when provoked because he doesn't know how to interact with the students. He doesn't have any friends to know what it's like to just be able to have friendly banter. Because the moment he gets provoked, he can react with either verbal or physical means of trying to get after other students. And then because of all the other things that he's got going on in his life, his time management could be an exceedingly large issue.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we are assuming a disposition of capability. Like as Wade outlined, he has many strengths, and that's why we believe he's very capable in succeeding in mathematics.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
No problem. So our differentiation consideration is that he's interested in design and photography. So we're going to try to bring that in would be a good consideration, connecting it to his life and interests, and then just making math relevant to Tom.
And for the interested in design and photography, one of the ways that we'd have him do that is he would then be able to take photos and bring them into class to connect them to the lesson. We will go through that more in detail, but I just want to throw that little nugget in there for you guys.
Little teaser. Okay, so just flipping over to the lesson plan. Should have switched the slide there. So we've got a lesson plan for Math 9. As we mentioned, Tom is in the 9th grade. And we actually adapted or got a lesson plan from my old high school teacher, math teacher, Angela Tavernini, from Winston Churchill High School there. So this is her lesson plan. Sorry, one sec. Oh, spoilers. Okay, there we go.
I give away everything now, just.
Yeah. So it's a graphing linear relations lesson plan. So her GLO is to use patterns to describe the world and solve problems. And the SLO is graph a linear relation, analyze a graph, and interpolate and extrapolate to solve problems. So basically what this would look like in Angela's class is she would go over the, like a chalk and talk, and go over the theory and the material, and then as seen here, and then use example problems and go over them as a class. And sometimes she'd have us come up to the board and do it ourselves, or she would do it with people raising hands. So as you can see,
a very classic I do, we do, you do.
Yeah, thanks, Wade. And so as you can see, it's real world problems. A car traveling on the highway is going 110 kilometers, display the distance car traveled on a distance time graph. And so a few questions and problems to do as a class. And then another word one here, a bike rental, rents a bike for $12, etc. And then to end the lesson, it would be 6 problems from the textbook. So how we would change the lesson, Wade will go over this slide.
So the practice questions that Angela goes over are quite simple in their nature, so we don't think that those would need to be reworded. However, in the textbook, sometimes those questions can get quite wordy, and for a student who's 3 to 4 grade levels below reading, that might be a bit of a problem. So we could take some of those questions and we could reword them and then give them out to Tom and the rest of the class with more simple verbiage. As well, like I said earlier, we would let Tom then bring photos in from the real world to associate it with the math problems that they're dealing with. Like, for example, the bike problem that Jason just went over in the lesson. We could tell Tom or the whole class, okay, so we have this assignment on Monday about bikes. I would love it if you guys could go out in the real world and take a photo of your bike or a bike that you see and bring it into class. And we would start out with Tom doing that. He would be the first one, but then we would open it up so the whole class can do it. And then finally, for Tom, it said there would be 6 questions to do in the textbook. With Tom's load and his time management issues, we thought it would be more beneficial for him to do 3. And the way that he could do that is we would choose one of them that he would have to do if there was a specific thing that he needed to be taught, and then he could choose the other 2.
And we would be very low key about this, just so the other students aren't like, well, why does he get to do 3 and we have to do 6? So we'd be very low key about it. But if it did come to the class that Tom was doing less work, then we would have a discussion about different abilities and skill levels as a class. So these are our adaptations that we would be making to the lesson.
Yes, and like Jason said, that low keyness, there's really no need for the whole class to know that Tom is doing less questions. So that would be a last resort type of a thing, because we're hoping that that would just be between the teacher and Tom. And then the rationale for the lesson plan changes, the reword because of the reading level, as I was saying, but as well, that will also affect the rest of the class. That will make the rest of the class's experience a lot easier as well as Tom's. The photos for engagement, because when you raise engagement, then the grades will follow. And then there's less questions for time management, because that is an issue that he outlined multiple times in the reading that we had to go through.
And just to be clear, for the photos for engagement, how this would look is we would tell Tom the topic on Friday, bikes and cars, and he would bring the photo in on Monday. And like we said, that would be open for all students. So the lesson plan changes strengths and weaknesses. Like Wade said, changing the language benefits all students. So we could help reword the textbook questions for other students as well. Letting all students throughout the semester bring in photos, the classroom contributions. This should be creating that classroom climate and community feeling. So it wouldn't just be Tom bringing in the photos. And now the weakness here, there might be a connotation that Tom is like a teacher's pet, but we've already addressed that with letting all students bring in photos or contributions to class. He would be overwhelmed with his 6-question load, we believe. So that's why we've adapted it to 3. As I addressed earlier, some students may think it's not fair that he gets to do 3, but we would address that. And right now the focus is on engagement first, not necessarily grades. The grades will come. And all of this adaptation towards Tom is connected to that bowling analogy we heard on the first day, in that we're trying to hit the hardest student first so all students can benefit. So all students would benefit from what we're doing with Tom, we believe.
So how Tom will succeed, we got it down to 5 steps. The lesson will accommodate his reading level, so then that way he can understand it better, and then that way he just won't immediately shut down and refuse to do it. Then he will become more engaged with being able to bring in the photos. Once he gets more engaged, he will have more time. He'll have more time to focus on less things, so he can do things better because there's going to be less questions for him to do. So he can just focus on the 3 instead of getting bogged down by all 6. Once he's doing all this, then we're hoping that he becomes more of a contributing member of the classroom. And when that happens, that also might allow him to become more socially engaged with the class, which would then help Maslow's hierarchy of needs with him. He would start to feel more supported, more loved, more cared for, that he'd actually want to be there more. And finally, all of this would take a lot of extraneous load off of his shoulders, which would allow him to succeed in all classes as well, not just math or reading. We're thinking that this could help for everything.
Well said. So that is the end of our presentation, folks. Our question for reflection, your assessment or activity. Based on our presentation, would you recommend further intervention or differentiation in the provided lesson? And how would that look? And why would you choose to do such things? That is our presentation. We look forward to your forum responses, and we thank you very much for listening to our presentation.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one. Take care.